Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 173 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to work on steel and silver coils. Enjoy! Okay, now that the geodes are looking pretty good, and we're making lots of requests here, going through all that excessive amount of solder there, it's going to take a while. But we had some coil upgrades we needed to do. Let's see, no station for tinned wire. Ah, that's because we have a train there already. Hopefully changing that setting will put an end to having two trains trying to do the same thing, because we only have one train at this station, so it needs to finish with this load before it can do the next one. So that's why we got that error. But we can do the steel sheet coils, and then we can do silver coils and silver wire coils. Additionally, we can upgrade steel to use either silicon or manganese. Well, we might as well set up that logic, especially with manganese, because it makes a big difference. I mean, manganese helps with aluminum too, but steel can be pretty brutal. So we have steel sheet coils. Let's see, and what quantity of ingots are we working with here? Probably 30 per second. So we'll set this to input mode. We'll do 30 a second from these steel ingots. So we need 8 of those. And then we need these induction furnaces, which with speed modules we only need 3 of them. And that will get us 7.5 sheet coils a second. Let's do another line. Same thing, except now it'll come from manganese. And we'll say the input is also our 30 per second. Put in the speed modules. But now that will produce 15 per second. I wonder if an existing setup would help here. To some extent probably, but it's also not that difficult to just make one. We do have some machines on hand here, but we need a few more. Let's create the normal way first, and we'll worry about the induction furnaces for now. So it looks like we need 3 induction furnaces for each type, and silicon is the same as far as the numbers are concerned. So 3 making steel the normal way, 3 making them with manganese. See, I guess we'd have like 3 belts. 1 for manganese, 1 for steel, which they share, and then 1 for the silicon on the other side. And this one will be from silicon. I'll just make them symmetrical and have those go right there. And silicon needs to go in there. Let's see, so as far as these machines go, well, we need a lot less inserters now because we upgraded them. So 1 inserter per machine. And how fast are these inserters these days? 8.57. So those go there. And we need the same number for their special resources. And that's it for those. And then the single inserters for this side. And speed modules. We'll need to have some logic to give priority to the alloy machines first, plus the necessary logic to control when they turn on and off. Normally, with the other setups, we had these alloy machines turning on when we had too many of a resource. But in this situation, we probably want them to be on all of the time, just because steel uses so much iron when it's going, that if either of these sets of machines are on, we'll cut our iron usage in half. So, seems pretty good. So I'll have to remember to do that. But this setup is pretty small. It will easily fit wherever it needs to go. And then we need to create our big setup for the coils. And the faster of the 2 setups needs 15 of them. So we can grab one of these and just hit the one with How about 18? And then it would basically just plop in right here. Of course, we need to upgrade them to the faster version. We've got most of them on hand already. Well, this is the first time seeing this work since we upgraded it. Looks like it's doing fine. It's got plenty of sodium hydroxide. And looks like it's slowed down to the point where the normal method of electrolyzing saline water is running. Doesn't look like these burners are turning on though. I did change a little bit of the logic to it, so that might have messed something up. Because it's just dumping. So it's connected. It's just not consuming anything. Oh, well. That's because there's no water on any of these. Whoops. Well, how much water are we talking about here? Will rate calculator work for boilers? Looks like it. So 240. Which sounds like one pump for each. Actually, they can do more than that, but one per each will work fine. We need to plop that in here somewhere. I think it will work. Like right here. Gotta be real careful where these power lines are. That should work through that. I should mention one other change I did off camera. Might find a little interesting. Is I noticed that this little burner here for getting rid of the extra raw gas we're making from processing oil here, it was normally just connected and these steam engines were just running all the time. But that looks bad for the electrical network. So what I did is use inventory sensor. So I hooked up inventory sensor to the heat exchanger, and in part this is because there's no tanks or room for tanks to take care of these gases. So I connected inventory sensor to the heat exchanger and looked at the temperature it's running at. The minimum temperature is 465 degrees. Anything higher than that is basically just like a form of storage. So I took the temperature output and used that for the set and reset logic. And right now it's connected because basically it's maxed out. Probably might need to start dumping some of this stuff soon. As long as it's not clogged though, I think we're okay. And it doesn't seem clogged quite yet. But that's kind of a cool use of inventory sensor. Yeah, our factory is just too efficient. It's kind of interesting to say it's too efficient when it's using 450 megawatts. But we're actually producing more power than we need right now. So it's doing quite well. Definitely, if you're not concerned with your energy usage, it can get pretty insane pretty fast. So that's kind of why this whole time I've been trying to do things efficiently, just so we wouldn't have that problem. Here is our steel, and we're going to have a bunch of stuff we're going to have to move around. Probably going to just have to kind of pick everything up and move it. And we do have some liquids to deal with, and steel is not the easiest thing in the world to make, so I kind of don't want to waste it. So we'll let all this clear out. So this would go up here somewhere, and we want to leave some room for expansion, so let's try to line up our induction furnaces down here, and it looks like this is where the top edge of them would be. So it would be something like this, and we'd want to kind of center it if possible. But actually this could work all right. We'll have a splitter there and say the priority needs to be on the right for the more efficient ways of making it. Looks like that's still working through its stuff. Probably should have brought extra belts because we're going to run out real fast. But we have an input of manganese and silicon. So we got to find a good spot to do that. Silicon we can do if we move things around a little bit. And out of undergrounds already. Seems like the manganese gets used up pretty well, because you see that after cutting this off and sending it only to aluminum, we definitely had more than enough. So I'm going to change the way this is done by letting this warehouse fill up all the way and then having logic to control where it goes elsewhere. Where the most desirable use of it is probably to steel. So actually, because of that, it should probably always be on for the purposes of making steel. And then aluminum is probably the next one, so we'd have to have, let's say, at least 10,000 ingots to go towards aluminum. And then how about 20,000 to make iron? And we can come in right up here. Assuming we had the belts. And now that we have those geogenerators, it's probably safe to start using silicon for other purposes that aren't directly silicon. We'll have to see how it works. Let's see, we need to send the signal down here. Then the arithmetic combinator to take the silicon signal out, just so it looks a little cleaner. And then we bounce this around, and we will control the inserters that put the silicon in based on that signal. And it probably won't happen, but if silicon is more than 50% of the warehouse's capacity, then consider it overloaded and turn on. Oop, did I send these to the wrong location? It's kind of hard to tell between steel and silicon. They look very similar. Okay, so this is steel. So yeah, it looks like that is the silicon one. So, putting this in, they should not load because it is not overloaded. And then manganese is already being controlled elsewhere, so we don't need to worry about that. And it looks like this got all cleared up. And now we have this set up. The top of the belt lines up with here. And we do want to try to center it in here. I guess it would line up like this. Yeah, something like right here. Like that. I guess there was enough power poles in the inventory to use the old ones to fill that design up, and I kind of don't feel like replacing them all since we already had them in the inventory. And the setup works. I'll just use them, I guess. I am still handcrafting those tier 2 of electric poles, so I don't want to use them unnecessarily right now. Now we need to put the storage tank in here. I guess right here is fine. And we'll get it all figured out here. See, these power poles are kind of in an awkward spot. And then the level of this tank will control the inserters picking up the steel ingots. This way we give priority over which process runs first. That the most ideal process is probably the manganese, so it will stay on all the time. And then we'll use a green wire to show the difference. where the level, let's say, has to go below 40,000. For that method. And below 30,000. For these ones. So that should be good. Different fluids. So that's molten steel. So what's this? Also molten steel. I really don't understand that. There's nothing in here. Ah, these are iron ones. Okay. There we go. So that's going, building up. Then we need to deliver it. And let's unhook this for a second. Because we don't want to be putting coils in there. And does this line up? Hey, it does. Oh, and these are still set to iron. Okay. There we go. And this is slightly too many machines. Let's see if this changes by having 18. No. Still need to have a speed module in there. And we'll let this run like normal until it eventually uses up all that steel. Assuming it ever does. It might not, actually. Because I don't know if regular research uses steel. Actually, I think it does it a little bit. So it should eventually go through that. Although I think for consistency of the output, it would be better to have these split. I think that's kind of why we are using the all corners tanks. And the pipes just barely match up, so... And we'll let this run. It's probably going to take 2 trains to go through all of that. But we'll start getting LTN warnings when it clears it out, and then we'll know it's time to upgrade the things to use coils. Well, speaking of steel, just made a request. Oh, interesting. Didn't notice that it has to go through the roundabout to go the other way first. But that's fine. That's a small efficiency decrease considering the depot's right here, so I'll just leave that. And we'll let that take its course. And hey, look at that. Some manganese coming through. Which should now be used to make steel a little more efficiently. Okay, we had 2 other coil setups to do. One, we need to convert silver into coils. And there's no alloys or anything, so we probably can just pick this stuff up and move it down as required. So silver comes from silver ingots. And how many per second of those ingots are we making? Well, not much. 18. I'm assuming that the factory produces 15. Well, I guess it can produce much more than that with those catalysts, but it's only got a yellow belt, so it must be 15 or less. So we'll say 15. We don't need to worry about the induction furnaces because we already got them. The only thing we need is the stirring casting machines. So we need 4. And we did go through some solder, so we can at least pick up a couple of those and just let it keep going. We'll get warnings on that too when it finally gets through its backup. We do have a much more narrow area here, so because of that we should probably build this in a way that is also more narrow. Where it's basically just one of these. Then this part of the silver setup is going to stay exactly the same, so we can just pick it up and move it. Meanwhile, on this side, we have to do the wire coils, and the input is limited by silver. So we'll set that to also 15. So it's 15 of each will give us 15 in total. And some speed modules. So we need a total of about 8 machines. But it looks like this side is all done, which is what I was waiting for. So we had this set up here, and it looks like it lines up with the pipes right there. So I think that's perfectly lined up. There's not much to it, really. And we got another silver request. Which will do its part to clearing all this out. So set to silver. It's probably not very much water. Nope. Let's just throw a pump jack in here, and it looks like the easiest place would be like down here. And then we move this. I don't know if it really needs to be made lined up with everything else here, but that's what we did, so we'll do it here too. We just have the one silver input right there. But we want to replace these with the better versions. And speed modules. Well, they're certainly monopolizing that belt. Well, we do really only need 2.5, and actually I didn't even put the speed modules in yet. Yeah, so in that sense we only need 2. There we go, something like that. We could put out a lot more silver than this if we need to. But I don't think we really need to right now, because the factory is basically set up for this number. So there it is, building up on these silver coils. Then we gotta let these warehouses empty. And finally, this last setup was silver coils. And it's probably going to be similar to these ones right here. But I don't see the need to make it super wide, since our machines are much faster now. Let's see, we've got 10 here. Let's just see what it looks like. And this does kind of line up with everything else. But we only need 8. So we can get rid of those 2. And it looks like we made the last request for silver plates, because it is a partial request. But we'll wait again until it's making requests for silver that doesn't exist anymore, and then we'll know that it's gone through its buffer. We need some water. But a single pump jack will do. And we need the speed modules. And then 2 induction furnaces of each type. I know that previously we used tanks and things, like right here. But I think that would be kind of excessive, considering we're just going into 2 pipes. So let's do that, and we've got other machines we can try to line it up with. So those are the pipes. Looks like the one on the left is the silver. So we've got silver, 1, 1, 1, 1. And the input will come up here. Stack inserter in, stack inserter in. And then the same thing on the other side. And hopefully we can line it up. It looks like we can, without the pipes touching. Set up for copper. And hopefully that's all we need. We just need lots of belts, because we need a belt of copper and a belt of silver. Considering I have tons of red belts, I'm just going to use red belts for this. Let's see, that one can be copper. And that's silver. Starting to run out of space for all these crazy belts. Well, if we completely run out of space, then we might have to do a logic system similar to how ore sorting is, to where there's only the minimum number of belts we need, and then we'll have logic turning everything on and off. But for now, this fits, so we'll keep using it as long as it works. And speaking of running out of space, totally running out here. And no more undergrounds as well. Looking good. Of course, this doesn't have anywhere to go because there's no station. But that's okay. For the same reason as with silver here, we want to let the factory run through its silver until it's all cleared out. And then we can go about retrofitting any station that is now short on silver. Because I imagine this can potentially change how some things are done. So let's say we ran out of silver for our circuit bus here. Well, it looks like we do still use silver for other purposes. But we can switch this out to use the silver wire coils. Or we could choose not to and just let it run the way it is and upgrade future setups. Guess it depends on what silver wire goes into. Well, as it turns out, it only goes into transistors. So in that sense, it almost wasn't worth making, but I guess it still was for productivity module reasons. Because I think we tried to put productivity modules in here and didn't, because otherwise why would this not have productivity modules in there? But something tells me we can if we're chopping it up from coils. So even though this is the only thing in Angel Bob's that uses silver wire, it'll be worth it to send it up here. So we'll have to convert this a little bit. But the first thing we need to do is let it go through the silver. So that's less work for us if all the silver is gone and we don't have to pick it up. So, great thing about LTN is we can just let LTN do its thing, and then eventually it's going to start sending us some warnings when there are no more resources. And uh-oh, parked at depot with residue. Well, the problem came back. Which one is it? The carbon depot. Wait, it's never happened with carbon before, so are we overloaded? I don't think so. I mean, there's no warnings going off about being overloaded on carbon. Well, that confuses me, because that was the same error we were getting before. But one thing that this doesn't have are these combinators in here to only send the train out when it's got the requested amount as opposed to the total that the train can hold, because I don't want to change that setting quite yet. And despite the fact this is just a carbon depot, it is an LTN station, so it will benefit from this. And if you've ever noticed that the carbon depot is constantly... Oh, there's the no stations with silver. The carbon depot is getting kind of nuked because we have a lot of carbon requests, and this one train really isn't enough, so definitely we've seen errors pop up. Let's see, this is a little difficult because there's 2 stations here. Let's make sure we get the wires hooked up to the right things. The request is from the station's output, and the count comes from the station itself. So, this is the output, and there's 2 stations, so it's a little weird. But that's there, and then this goes into these inserters, but the inserters are set to... They have their own little logic set up, so they don't fill up the train while it's sitting here. And you can see the little bit of residue as a result. That could have been what the warning was, is just that right there. Well, I'm glad the train didn't keep going then, because previously when it had residue, it would just get filled up again. Which, I guess, kind of makes sense that the train goes to the wrong spot, but like with the residue thing, the problem was is the train was returning to the station it came from, not the depot. But this so happens that the station and the depot are kind of the same thing. But luckily, we've already got a wire hooked up, so we gotta get it just right here. Because there's a lot going on, but there we go. So now these need to have green square. So, despite the fact the station works differently, this setup will still work just fine. And does that get rid of the residue warning? Seems like it. Okay. Well, fingers crossed that fixes it, and one nice thing about LTN Manager is you can just look for warnings. Because warnings are bad. So if you don't have any warnings, then you're doing alright. So there's our request, requesting 33,000 silver. Is it for the science? No. That is actually for the circuit setup, but it's still going to make requests for it, but we kind of want to go through all of this silver first. Because, like we did with aluminum, right here, I don't want to rebuild the entire thing to use coils, so I'm just going to have a coil chopper line somewhere for the silver. But we kind of need to run through the silver we've got before we can do that. And then once we've done that, we can convert this to silver coils. And then the coils would come down, and then maybe come out here, get chopped, and then get shot back in. And then we'd make a new request off of one of these depots here for the wire coils. Alright, no station supplying carbon. Well, that's definitely not right. So something got a little messed up here. So it is not on the supply anymore. Did a wire get broken? So there's the carbon. Oh, did I invert this? Yeah, I think I did. Okay. Well, let's just change the colors so they match everything else. So the red wire right now is going towards the inserter. Okay, that's not right. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Okay. Just the colors were inverted for how they were being used elsewhere. It's kind of hard to see when they're all vertical like this, so that should hook up the carbon. And now we can disconnect these inserters from the red wire. And now the red wire can connect in via the capacity. There we go. And then we need to put this on the input. So that should fix it if it updates. And let's see, it's got a green square, but I'm not sure why. It's interesting that they're not on, despite the fact that a green square is being sent. Wait, but it's not being sent here, then... it's a red green square. Well, that's a problem. Okay, let's set this to a color the station doesn't use. How about pink? Let's see, it might help to... Oh! So I was thinking we can turn it off and then turn it on again to help it, but... It looks like it updated. I'll make sure this counting is working. Where the 32,000 input of carbon is the request. So it's coming out as R. And the count is what's currently on the train, and it's going up. And as long as the request is less than the count, the inserters will stay on. So hopefully that works. We do still need to convert carbon here to be produced using the more efficient method with nitrogen, but that's kind of a process in itself. And it does use sodium hydroxide, which we're now making readily, but I don't want to get too distracted. And right now we're doing pretty good on carbon. It looks like most of our factory's carbon is actually coming from trees anyway, so this doesn't run very much. So we could probably put that off for a while. And it's interesting that there's 2 belts going into this, but then it's being split. So it seems like this would be a lot faster if they were the bigger warehouses. But everything is kind of smushed in there. It may not matter anyway if it doesn't have the output, but let's wait for this train to leave, and then we can upgrade it. Probably important to make sure that it actually does leave. And let's cut these off for now to make sure it's not putting too much carbon in there that we're just going to have to move by hand later. Making more silver requests, but we've still got some on hand, so I'm gonna let that work its way down. So will the train leave when it's completely full? Yep. Okay. Well, let's put a storehouse somewhere for now, just so we can pick all this up. We've kind of got a lot to move here. And because of the position of those power poles and where the train will park, see right now that they're centered. Well, I kind of want to put them like right here, just so we can put a line of 4 and not have it be blocked by the pole. But if we do, it's not going to be centered with the train, but so be it. Because I'm not going to redo all those wires again just for that. We do need to connect the wires to the new inserters, though. And set the new inserters. And hook up the new warehouses. Then we can put more splitters in here. I guess I'll just leave the belts red for now. Hello, carbon train. Because we might upgrade production later to where we need all these to be reds. Because we do consume quite a bit of carbon. Oh yeah, we need to set these to the size of the train. There we go. Hopefully that helps productivity a bit. I kind of wish on here it would give you warnings. See, it says parked at station with residue again. No, but it did, actually. Well, I think it's because the inserters had swung over, but the train had left. In this situation, this might be a fairly harmless warning, because it's fine, because this is the only thing the train does. The only problem is if that train is unavailable. And if you go to Carbon Depot, which is layered on top right here, it says 1, so that the train is available, despite that warning. Probably in the future, just don't do this anymore. Just have the train park in an actual depot, rather than right here. But for now, I think this is a harmless error. It just kind of bothers me because this is the error I was looking for with the other trains, so when I'm scrolling through here to make sure everything's working right, if I see that, I'm like, oh no, there's a problem. Oh wait, it's the carbon train. So that's kind of bad. But well, let's put in another tier of research. There's actually not that many more tiers left, because it looks like this finishes the reach upgrades. And will also be finished up with the movement upgrades. The only thing that will go further is crafting. Well, I just went through all this effort of setting up this station, and now there's residues in there. This is going to be a super janky fix. But let's put some inserters in here. See, this is committing to a bad idea. Because the better thing is just to send this train off to, let's say, the plate depot all the way down here, or something like that. But then it would have to come all the way down here, and there's no depots over here, and that just seems so inefficient. So instead, let's hook up these inserters. These inserters require a pink signal to turn on. Well, these other ones require the absence of a pink signal. So pink has to be greater than 0. Well, on this one, pink has to be 0. So we picked up a little bit of carbon. So let's say the train parked here with some residues or whatever. It would do that to get rid of it, and probably want to switch these to have an input priority on the residue side. So next time a request comes through, hopefully these will turn off, and the other ones will turn on. And that way we won't have the warning anymore, because warnings are bad. We want lots of green. Of course, Circuit Unload is requesting these, but we could probably keep an eye on this just to find out when it's time for more silver, because I think the maximum it holds is like 52,000 or something along those lines. So we can just keep an eye on that for when we need to convert that to use coils. Otherwise, how is everything else working? Aluminum is chugging away, making lots of coils. And we got a delivery of some coppery byproducts. And the bus is functioning. We have a nice storage of crystal dust. And how's this working? It's a little problematic. I am kind of worried about that, where you produce some geodes more than others simply through random chance. So as a result, one of them is always going to be the thing that clogs it. So the vast majority of this storehouse is being filled up with the purple geodes. But I suppose that's okay. As long as this remains full, it's not a problem. It'll just consume whatever geodes it has access to, and then eventually new kinds will make it through when they can. So we'll have to look at this over the long term to make sure that it doesn't clog up. And certainly there's a lot of logic we can do. The easy way is probably just to have no limit on this warehouse and just let it fill up as much as it can. And hopefully it will be smoothed out that way. This is looking a lot better as far as how the trains are handling things. It all seems very efficient, and it's kind of nuts how quietly this factory has been producing science. That over the past 10 minutes we've made 1.7K of blue science. And even over the past 10 hours, which it looks like that's when I've been doing most of my testing, that produced 57,000 of them. So they're not really the easiest thing to create, and yet the factory has been busting through a bunch of them. Yeah, just in the past hour it's made 10,000. So it may not seem like much is happening, but the factory is actually doing quite a lot. And it seems like, at this point, it is a well-oiled machine. I'm not seeing many other issues with this. We just need to wait till we're through with the silver and the steel so we can upgrade those. But otherwise, it's looking really healthy, and that's great, because we need it to be in a healthy spot to work on the new bus. But that's going to have to wait till the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.